Was the worst year for a lot of us for our mental as well as physical health. So joining us this morning is best-selling author, coach, and fitness expert, Lisa Goldenthal.
Hello and welcome. I'm Lisa G, your host. You're at the top of your game, yet the game is changing faster than ever. Strategies that got you here aren't the ones that'll keep you here. The pressure is relentless, and the fear of obsolescence looms large. That's why I'm here. Welcome to the new podcast series, Disrupted: How to Be Gritty and Unlock Performance. This is your chance where I sit down with today's tops in business, mindset, wellness, and success to help you master disruption and thrive.
Thanks for coming, and I'll see you soon.
Welcome to the podcast, a licensed therapist, international speaker, and mindset and transformational coach, specializing in anxiety, trauma, sex, and intimacy. She's the owner and operator of Mindful Mental Health, an online practice offering therapy for people. She helps her clients let go of shame and limiting beliefs, reconnect to their confidence, reclaim their empowerment, and realign with their highest purpose. Allison Guilbault, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
again.
Guilbault. All under the
Guilbault.
same
Sorry,
thing.
I am just want to make sure I got your name right.
I appreciate it.
I'm so excited to talk to you and jump into some of your awesome topics here.
Yeah.
So how can we cultivate confidence to
Ooh.
reclaim and empower our personal and professional lives?
Oh my God, I love it. Yeah. So, something that I've learned over the years is that confidence, we think of it as something that we either have or we don't have, but the truth is it's simply just a skill, right? So when we kind of think about it in terms of that space, it becomes so much more accessible to really anybody. So, when we're thinking about how to reclaim our confidence, I always like to say that the starting point is just simply knowing that you can. And it sounds a little cheesy and it sounds a little oversimplified, but if it becomes sort of this like monstrous thing that we think is just so unattainable to us, we will fulfill that prophecy, right? We won't really feel empowered or confident. But if we flip the switch and we start to really think, I can get this, right? It's suddenly just like any goal that we have. It suddenly starts to feel more manageable, more approachable, and really something that we can, bring into our lives. So that's always my starting point. Just believe you can. Just run with that.
I love that. I know Mel Robbins would say it's like a decision to try.
Yes, exactly. And when we're talking specifically about confidence, I think, something I hear from my clients the most often is that they think there's sort of a prerequisite to confidence, right? So I'll talk to particularly women and they'll say something like, yeah, I'll feel confident when I lose that weight, when I get that size, when I get that promotion, when I find that partner. And I really try to reframe that because the truth is, in order to get the things that we want, we actually have to have the confidence first. It isn't something as like a reward that you get for accomplishing a goal. I always think of all the successful people that you know in your life, right? They had to take a blind leap of faith at some point, right? Like none of us, most of us, are not like born into success mindset. It's something we really have to think about, something we really have to activate. So if you start to just simply believe in yourself, right? Again, it sounds when I give these big topics, they're like, this is your golden speech. But the truth is, it is because our brains, the more we think one thing, the more accessible that thought becomes. So if we are constantly telling ourselves something like, I'm not good enough, right? I need to try harder. My productivity defines me. That's going to overshadow all of our goals and make it really, really difficult. But if we start to believe something like, it might be difficult, but I'm going to do it. I have limitless possibilities. There's abundant mentality. Opportunity is really here. It actually scientifically, empirically is proven that we are more likely to actually access that stuff.
I love the empowerment of starting with knowing that confidence is a skill you can build like anything else. And I want to jump into some of the topics that you just mentioned. And there's so much to unpack there as far as like mindset. And I know that authenticity is a really important part of confidence and letting go of guilt and shame. So, what topic are you passionate about going into next of those topics?
Ooh, I love to talk about shame.
Yes, let's
I
do it.
do. I love to talk about shame because most people skip that as part of like the healing conversation. And the truth is, we often think something and then immediately apply it with shame. And I'll give you an example. Like, I've really been working on my body positivity, but today I'm just having a crappy day. I shouldn't have a crappy day. I shouldn't care about what my body looks like. I should be past this, right? And all of that shame and that guilt about feeling what we're authentically just feeling, it actually creates an impasse. Right now we got to get through two layers. We're not even getting to this is just what I feel like and how am I going to work through it? We have to dive through all of the shame first. And it's extremely an unhelpful pattern, right? And so to me, sort of the opposite of shame is just mindfulness. And mindfulness as a whole, like there's a lot of language around mindfulness. We hear this all the time. The way that I utilize mindfulness is simply just experiencing what is happening without judgment, right? And so if you're noticing something like, it's really uncomfortable for me to have sex with my partner emotionally, right? We don't have, but I shouldn't feel that way. It's like, again, just get rid of the should and just look at like saying the sentence, actually, sex is uncomfortable for me because I'm still worried about my body or I for purity culture or whatever it may be, right? So it's really just looking at how you are feeling without judging and putting all that garbage on top of it.
I love this topic of shame because I've had so many conversations with clients and girlfriends of mine, and they're like, just for example, even today, like, I want to lose 10 pounds by Friday. I don't know where you guys are hearing us, but today's Thursday, just for an example. And I had 3 margaritas last night and I'm just eating too much. So I feel like when people start in the past of what they've already done, but they have this goal and
Yeah.
it's obviously not realistic, but at the same time, when you let go of feeling bad about what you've already done and you become more mindful in the present,
Yep.
it's
Absolutely.
wonderful. And what else about unpacking how to get rid of some of these limiting beliefs that are just holding us back from all that we're capable of?
Yeah, I think I want to use your example, right? So noticing what we've done in the past, there is a fleeting utility of regret, right? It's like there's a little light bulb that goes up where it's like, aha, I made a decision that I've, upon reflection, decided wasn't the best decision for me. I regret those margaritas. I regret those nachos that I ate. I'm not feeling my best life, right? And I'm all for about food freedom. So if you want to eat the nachos, eat the nachos. But if you're having if you're having sort of that guilt and that shame, right? Take the aha moment, but then transmute it into empowerment, which is like, okay, well, I have the capability now of making a different decision tomorrow. Right. And, I think we can even like, it's easy to look at it in like a food context, but it's also easy to look at it. I want to look at it from like even like a relationship point, right? Like raise your hands if you've had a poor relationship, like pretty much everybody does, right? So it's like instead of being like, but I should have seen the red flags or I should have had better boundaries, it's like, okay, I've had something to learn. I've taken this experience and instead of thinking it as a failure, I'm going to think of it as a learning exercise. And I can take what I've now learned about myself, what I need, what makes me feel good, and I can use that to make future decisions and present decisions, right? And like that's power, right? When we get into all of that like guilt, that shame, it's just ugly. It just immobilizes us. And a limiting belief, shame can definitely be a limiting belief, but limiting beliefs are actually wider than that. And a limiting belief is simply something that we're saying to ourselves that gets in our way. So ones that I hear from clients on the regular are like, I'm too old for that, right? Oh my God, if I wanted to do it, I should have done it already. What is everybody going to think? I don't have enough money, right? Like there's some obstacle that's blocking us from actually hitting the goal. And the way that I want to, again, transform that idea is, I don't believe that manifestation is simply, I want it, therefore I have it, right? But
I
it
wish.
does,
Yeah.
I wish it was that easy. It's not, right? But if we're starting to just get more creative, more flexible, more patient, we usually can find some sort of an entry port into kind of like moving towards our goals, right? Where those limiting beliefs are just a sticking point. They stop us in our tracks.
I love it because I feel like people get so problem focused. Sometimes they can't get focused on the solution because they're like, this happened and I feel bad and I'm stuck in the problem. And
Exactly. Exactly that. Yeah.
it's just, I've seen people stew for days, months, years about
Mhm.
this happened to me. So
Yes.
unempowering.
Yes, exactly. And like, personal accountability, taking responsibility, those things feel really scary at the jump, right? Like, oh, I can get in my own way, which then means I can also get out of my own way, but that's scary. But if we just kind of shift it a little bit and start to think like, but that's your liberation, right? Like if we take it from like, oh my God, I'm responsible for everything. So like, I'm responsible for everything, right? My response is my responsibility. I can make decisions, steps. I can redirect thoughts that are unhelpful. Like, I don't have to stand in my own way. And that is just like, it's juicy. It's sexy. I love it.
Oh my gosh, there's so many mic drop moments already. Like my response is my responsibility. I hope you guys are listening. And as a therapist, I want to get into the topic. We're living in this volatile, uncertain world.
Yeah.
And how can we start getting rid of some of the shame around mental health?
Yeah. Normalizing it, right? So we are living in a volatile world. And I don't know anybody who isn't having a tough time in some part of their lives, right? And I think, especially with the emergence of social media, not to give social media a hard time, I love my social media accounts. We get a little stuck in like that comparison bias where we're having like little windows into each other's lives that we wouldn't otherwise have. And we look at someone like, oh my God, I love that they're on another trip again. I wish that was me. Or like look at them in their matching pajamas on Christmas and looks like their family has it all figured out. And then we compare ourselves and we're like, well, why don't I have that? And the truth is, no one's got this figured out. We're all, I say this, I talk to thousands of people, literally, you know, everyone is just doing the best they can, right? Like no one has the answers. No one has a perfect life. Life is difficult. And that doesn't have to be some like solemn, deep, terrifying thought. It can just be like a normalization that we're going to go, life ebbs and flows. We're going to have beautiful moments. We're going to have moments where we struggle. And I think if we collectively all just kind of agree to that truth, right? Like no one's got to figure it out. It's not me, it's just life, right? It does start to kind of normalize our anxieties, our depressions, right? Like our relationship problems. And I wish we just kind of talked about that a little more. So, like, thank you for having podcasts like this, right? Where we get to hear other people's experience. We get to normalize life and the struggles that come with it. And I do think that that kind of just naturally, it doesn't make it feel so isolating. Like, oh, I'm not getting it right.
I love there's just something about talking to you. Everything is so uplifting talking to your therapist. It's like, yeah, we're all struggling. I remember when I was younger, I didn't realize it as much as when I got older. It was like
Mhm.
when you hear Buddha saying, that life is suffering and things like that, you don't really get it. You're like, oh, that sounds negative. But when you level the playing field and realize we all have our own personal battles
Yeah.
that we're walking through and nobody knows what they are
Yeah.
because we're putting on this front on
Yeah.
social media and we're like, look at me here and look at me there. And that might be what I like to post when I'm on vacation. And at the
Yeah.
same time, my day isn't vacation every single day. I'm in the
Right.
trenches, I'm doing the hard things, I'm making it happen, pushing rocks uphill sometimes. And I started this podcast. Thanks for acknowledging it in 2020 because that was a hard time for me.
Mm.
I mean, everything that I knew was hard, and I never knew 4 years later we would still be having these conversations. So my last question for you,
Mm.
I really want to help people be unstoppable. Do you have
Mm.
any tips for our audience on how can we be unstoppable in this volatile, uncertain, crazy world?
Yeah, I tell this story a lot and I'm going to share it here. I had a 10-year-old client once asked me the meaning of life. And I was like, I don't know. So I did the therapist-y thing. And I was like, what do you think it is? And he was like, find the things that make you smile, do more. Find the things that make you frown, do less. Right. And I was like, that's
Oh,
brilliant. That's a brilliant piece of advice. And I've kept the kid's probably like 25 now. And I've been saying this story for 15 years. But I think like when we're thinking about becoming unstoppable, it's not only recognizing what gets in your way, right? And like doing less of that and really finding the things that support you and lift you up, whether that's relationships, social media accounts, listening to good podcasts that inspire you. But it's really taking intention and really trying to saturate yourself. I don't want like toxic positivity, right? But like surrounding yourselves with things that inspire you and bring you up and really noticing the things that are kind of pulling you down, whether it's a pattern, whether it's a thought, whether it's a person, right? And just like becoming really insightful of your own needs, right? And like moving towards what's pushing you forward and fostering your growth and what's kind of hanging onto your foot and pulling you back.
wow. I mean, it sounds simple when you think of it as a 10-year-old came up with it, but do more of the things that make you happy is like fantastic advice because
Mhm.
sometimes we get caught up in the things we think we should do and we don't want to be shedding all over ourselves.
Amen to that.
Wonderful talking to you. I feel like you're so easy to talk to, Allison.
Thank
Where
you.
can
Same.
people get more of your good stuff?
Yeah, so I have a podcast myself called Becoming Unstoppable on all the places you find your podcasts. And my website is anotefromyourtherapist.com. And I'm on most social media handles by the same name, A Note from Your Therapist.
A note from your therapist. Wonderful. Well, thanks you for being such a great guest and bringing such value.
Thank you for having me.